Good evening, Olive.
Good evening, Ruchira.
Very nice to be here with you again.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy to be with you this evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And a very warm welcome to all the folks, all the men and women who have joined us from different parts of Uganda, East Africa, and across the world. Thank you so much for joining us today as we talk about a very personal aspiration that people have, how to get on boards. But we are going to do one thing better, one step better. We're also going to talk about how to stay on boards. Once you get there, how do you stay there? So that is the topic that we are going to be discussing today. And what we'll do is we'll take a sneak peek into Olive's personal life, how she has prepared for it, and interesting stories, nuggets, diversions, disappointments, sudden opportunities, all that might have come through, fallen through the sky, and how Olive has picked all of them with both hands and how she has come here. So that's what today's next few minutes are going to be. And yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And Olive, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, sharing personal life journeys and life stories. It's not always easy to be willing to talk about them in a public forum, but thank you so much for being willing to do this.
Thank you very much, Ruchira. And to me, it's an opportunity to share my story, because I strongly believe that the more we share, the more we can have the positive impact, especially on having women into the top leadership positions and into the boardroom. So I'm blessed and privileged to be part of this discussion.
Thank you. So curtain raiser question is the simplest one, I guess, but then I think it also talks to us about how early did you start aspiring to be on boards, Olive? When did that start for you? When did that thought germinate in your head?
Wow, but Ruchira, you see, yeah, I'll try. When did I start? I mean, if I look back at my career, I admired. You see, you could wake up and see this board member, the board has decided, the board has that. So I had an inquisitive mind in understanding what the board is, much as I was very young, and I had, not very young, maybe 25 in my first employment. But where I think I got the real gist is when I was interviewed by the board. And that was Uganda Revenue Authority, because they were trying to recruit somebody. And I was told, the interview you're going for is by the board. And during that interview, of course, I met several people, and they were excited. They asked me a number of questions. The next journey was the National Social Security Fund, where again, my interview was still by the board. So those two episodes actually were just opening my inquisitive mind. And I kept thinking, what does one need to do to be on the board? And I looked at the board members. Most of them were older people, older women, older men. I think they had this experience, this long knowledge and expertise. And I said, but I think I don't have to wait until retirement to join on the board. So that inquisitive mind for me, I think, opened my mind. And if you look at my plan in the last maybe 20 years, you will find in my notebooks, because I write a lot, you'll find my notebooks on which boards I thought I would one day get on. There are those that I managed to get on. There are those that I've never got on, but I still think I'll get on them. So I think that's what I can think. And that was from about 2000, I think that's 99 when I was interviewed by URA. And then later in 2004 when I was interviewed by NSSF. That's what I could say. And then the people I admired, I had specific people that I admired. Maggie Chigozi, I would just love to see them talking about the board. So that in short, I could say some of the things that triggered my interest in getting onto the boards.
And once the interest was triggered, once the aspiration came in, how did you start preparing to get on boards, right? Like, I mean, it's a very it's a powerful thought to say that, hey, wait, I don't need to be old or retired to do this. So how did you start preparing to be on boards?
I'm trying to, yes, the first, I think I could recall, and that was the National Social Security Fund, because that's where I got onto my first board. One of the things I realized is that to be a board member, you must have a vast knowledge, experience, and expertise in specific areas. So in NSF, I didn't have experience in investments, and I realized there were opportunities on investments. It was a new area. So I went in deliberately and sat with the head of investments and requested them to place me on the investment committee. That was on my free will. And then I asked them to send me the weekly updates on investments in Uganda, in East Africa, and globally. So that gave me that knowledge, which I picked without going to class, without having any extra work, but I did that between 5 and 7 every day. So with time, I started being very knowledgeable on investments, what decisions we make on investments, the stock exchange, and all other investment vehicles that happen. That was one area. The other one was to make myself relevant and to be present in the right forums. That, I can tell you, even today, it's something that is a must. Making yourself relevant and being present in the right forums. And what I did, because I kept reading a lot, that is also one of the things, knowledge in the newspapers, I started trying to find out how do people get onto the boards. I was advised by one person who said, no, most of these boards have a term limit, 3 years, maybe renewable ones. What you need is find the different corporation secretaries in the country, find out how their boards are moving, and the first term and second term, because you must have that information. So I did that. The other one, which I remember very well, is creating time for it. And this, I can give you the example of my first board, how I got onto the first board. I was invited for a meeting. I think it was my managing director who had been invited for this meeting, and he wasn't able to go. So he went around looking for who would be in position to go, and that was 6 p.m. And I said, I will go. Because most times we fail to balance between the family, the job, and your career path. So everybody said, I'm running to pick my kids from school. And I said, no, I have somebody who will pick my kid today. I think for me, this is an opportunity. And it was the Uganda Women's Entrepreneurs Association. So the question I asked myself, I said, okay, if I'm going to attend this meeting, one of the things I must do is to make myself relevant. So I went with my mind open to ask a question. Because this is a group of 100 people, 200 people. Most people fear to ask. If you don't ask that question, you'll never be seen. Nobody will ever get to know that you're actually knowledgeable. So I think they presented on the women entrepreneurs in Uganda. And on my experience, I knew that the awareness level was low. The branding was not there. They were not appreciated. And I asked the question, I said, what is your strategy on branding, you will, placing it into the top minds of Ugandans and getting more people and awareness? The rest is history, because I had registered in the book of entry. 2 weeks later, I received a call and I was requested to have a meeting with the board chair. And what she said, you actually asked a question, but that area of branding is very new. And most boards are struggling because they don't have anybody on boards. They have finance, HR, the old approaches to boardroom that you must have the HR person, you must have the finance, because branding was still a unique area which hadn't got on the dining table. So that's how I end up, out of all those strategies, I end up getting onto my first board. And that was 2007.
Beautiful. So there's something about making in the moment decisions. There's something about readjusting priorities in a very short span of time and saying yes. I think there was a huge willingness to say yes.
Exactly. And you must be able to give up one. or the other.
Yeah.
That decision is very critical. I knew that I'll pick my kids every day, but an opportunity comes in once. So if you're a woman or a lady and the challenge is how to balance, there must be those moments, opportunities where you let one go. Of course, when I got home, I involved my children. I said, you know what, I had this meeting. And even the kids were happy to know the meeting I had been in. So it gives you that opportunity to say, look here, my kids, I'm also doing something else. It makes me feel good and will make you feel good. So they walk the path with you. They stop feeling that if you don't pick them, it's because you don't want them or whatever, and other reasons.
Yeah, no, that's such a vital point, Olive, because I think work-life balance, family-life balance, with aspiring to have a fully satisfying career, a fully rewarding career, is yes, people struggle with the notion. I think a lot of the time people struggle with the notion because they'll end up struggling with the notion. There's a certain guilt that comes in and makes the journey a lot more difficult. But I think
that's a whole topic on its own. One time we'll get time to do that, the work-life balance.
Yeah, the work-life balance and the guilt.
Yes, exactly, and how to let go the guilt. Okay.
Yeah. So Olive, what's also very evident is, I think from your stories, this and others that you have shared, that there is this element that you always bring in terms of that nothing happened suddenly. There was always a preparation for it. And here too, it seems as if that you made it possible to be visible to boards before you got in them.
Exactly.
Right. So
exactly.
The shadow work is important.
Exactly. And that is another story, because you see, once my mind got interested and I started asking the question, what do I need to have? How knowledgeable should I be? Then if you look at my whole career path and you look at my CV, you will see that every single step I took thereafter was deliberate. The example I can give you is that I got several offers for training to do maybe masters in mass communication, maybe to do a master's in gender. But because I had identified governance as one of the areas I needed, I decided to go for the MBA summit, okay, which gave me that whole knowledge of governance, what I need to do, and I took a deliberate effort in that area. So if you look at my results for that year, they were exceptionally good. So I also went on and said, okay, there was an opportunity to do the Africa board, and I went for that training for 1 year, and I became an Africa board fellow. So if I'm an Africa board fellow, how many Africa board fellows are in the country or in the region of East Africa? I have it. I graduated in Cape Town, and being an Africa board fellow means you have actually fully understood the different scenarios that you can be in to help a board make the right decisions. You're able to see the pitfalls that many companies globally have gone through, but it's a full commitment that one needs to do. The other one which I went in through is the balance scorecard. These are complex things because sometimes we want the comfort way. But for you to be able to move, you must give away a bit of your comfort. So I went in for the balance scorecard. I had to sit exams. Imagine at that age, when you're 40, you think, how can I sit exams, or 35? I mean, it's too hard. What is it going to add on me? But I went in for the balance scorecard. And I think the exams were through the US, and I sat those interviews and passed. Now, in my mind, I realized that for you to be on a board, you needed to have that vast knowledge, because boardrooms are not about me being a finance, HR, marketing. It's about your knowledge, your level of knowledge, and being able to make the right decisions basing on that knowledge that you had. So for me, there are a number of those trainings that I did, the chartered marketing, UK, I also went in and by the time I became a chartered marketer, I think there was one more chartered marketer in the country. So once I realized that brand marketing was a virgin area that was missing in boardrooms, several steps that I took were leading me into that. They were leading me into a vast career, a bigger CV that in never any interview I sat in, I had to get through, but they're also giving me opportunities into governance.
Yeah.
I think that's what I can share as some of the steps that I've been taking, and I'm continuing to take because I continue reading a lot.
Yeah. So there's certainly a very strong sense of preparedness. There's a structured preparedness by committing yourself back to school, college, structured material, stuff that is important. And then there is the part which is likely unstructured learning, right? Information, knowledge that comes in from different sources and going to networking programs. And like you said, you know, be relevant and also make sure that you are in the right place with the right set of people. So those are strong intentions, but making time for them is another thing that you mentioned very strongly, right? And I think there's a very important piece that you're bringing in, Olive, which is to say that that you joined the Africa board. So in your opinion, do these programs help? You know, there are quite a few programs that have come up now for board training, board leadership. How do you think they add or impact leaders?
What I can confirm is that actually they are very, very useful because they prepare you for the boardroom. The beauty with these programs is that if you're a starter, or if you're just beginning into boards, or you have been already in boards, there's that knowledge and experience that you'll never be able to know. And what most of them is the examples. You see, different boards have different challenges. The solutions are totally different. Somebody will tell you that to serve on a board of a government board, these are the challenges we face, the policies, the laws, the political interference. Somebody else will tell you this one is the shareholders not agreeing with the dividends that you're giving. The other one will be the NGO. So this training gives you that opportunity to be able to fully understand your role, first as a board member, but also to put you into a position to know when you are making the right decision and when you're making the wrong decision, and the impact that can happen when you're making actually the wrong decision, and your responsibility as an individual. Because some of these boards you can end up being imprisoned because you made a decision and you're part of a board. So these trainings actually show you the global trends. They will show you which countries, which boards failed. Some of you have been reading the stories in the US, in the civil, in the banking industry. You've seen recently in aviation, we saw, I think, the different ones in South Africa. I won't, without mentioning specifically the companies involved. We've seen several globally, but in each of that decision, there's a learning we get. Perhaps we should have read the audit reports better. Perhaps we would have put the auditors more on, but it is gone. So without the training and these opportunities, it is very hard because then you're locked in. You're locked in and you cannot actually you'll make decisions, but you'll never realize the impact can have. So for me, if there's anything that has given me that boost, is the trainings. I do trainings online. I go for physical trainings. Much as I've been on, 7 boards, I still attend training because every training has a different opportunity. If you go to banks, you're talking about regulators. Insurance sector, you're talking about regulators. That's a different game when it comes to government, different game when you come to the NGO. Without the trainings, it will be a very big challenge for you to stand out and also to feel the confidence. Because when you train, you feel confident to make a decision. You stand up in the boardroom and speak authoritatively. Management will respect you because these management teams are always very knowledgeable technically, even in leadership, because they are managing directors. So for you to be a board member and come in and make your statement and be felt in that boardroom, you need to have that knowledge, which you can only get much of it through the training, structured trainings.
I think what's important to highlight here, Olive, is that one is the case study method of understanding the essence or the potential of a problem, right? How large it can become if right, right due diligences, the right governance, or right outfall or aftermath of it is not thought about, right? And this becomes sometimes clear only in hindsight. That's why case studies are important, right? If mankind knew how to do everything perfectly, we will not have so many problems, right?
Exactly.
But problems generate because we are blindsided, we are hindsighted, and also there is a difference in terms of knowledge, and having the right mental contours, the confidence, the conviction to take decision based on the knowledge. These are very different. They are two different pieces.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because you have knowledge, but you need the practical part of it. Because then you'll look at the knowledge and the practical, and you'll be speaking for authoritatively to say, practically, this is what I think it is, because it never worked here. So if we are going to try it now, we should anticipate these challenges.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic. It also is it ties back. It's a full loop back into the same conversation, right? That once you're on boards, you could have come from a finance background, somebody could have come from a marketing, somebody could have come from an HR background, but boundaries dissolve in a boardroom. You need to know not just on the surface level, but at the impact level about everything. That those are the pieces that qualify you to be on a board.
Exactly.
And Olive, was your first board a nonprofit, NGO, private, and most importantly, did you get paid for it? Sure, all of our audience wants to know how much got paid for it.
That's a nice question, because you see, when you're thinking and admiring the boards, the first thing somebody will say is to be on the board, you make more money, you get richer, it will add more money on your salary. If I'm earning less and I go in and do the board. But I can tell you that my first board was an NGO, and that's the Uganda Women's Effort to Save Orphans. This is a pure NGO that needed your knowledge, that needed somebody who are able to give a free service in the interest of seeing a change in society. So when you talk of orphans, UWESO, knowing that was coming in with dealing with orphans, street children, you wouldn't expect them to actually pay you. And actually, when they interviewed me, they told me this is a charity, and I said I'll be happy to add value onto this board. So for the years I served on UWESO, I was never paid, but I gave them my whole self to the maximum. Because in my mind, fortunately, maybe as an individual, I've always been somebody who has supported society. I've been in so many projects free. I've put up projects in different schools to help the girl child. So for me, this was like an opportunity to make a change in society. And I can add that today, that was a number of years ago, I have now been again elected as the chairperson of the National Executive Committee of UWESO. So the work I did many years ago, and the period between then and this year, I was surprised to receive the call to say, we want to elect you and we want you to take on this mantle of the entire country. So if you follow the people behind the street children, I'm leading the board. That's the National Executive Committee. So do well, serve well, don't expect to be paid, but the results are enormous. And I'm back into a field that I want. The second one is that I must say, Ruchira, that all my first 3 boards, I wasn't really paid. I had UWESO, but you must go in there and make yourself relevant and add value. 1 year later, I think UWESO was 2007. And later, 1 year later, I joined PACE, which is also another NGO. And then I went on to join the Uganda Health Marketing Group, which was the biggest local NGO in the country. So with the UHMG, of course, they started giving us fuel refund, and maybe because you've done this, But I must say we didn't really have that sitting allowance, retainer. So for my first 3 boards, they were just giving me that opportunity to be grounded, that opportunity to be able to stand out in boards, and the opportunity to think on what I need to do. So my first boards were not paid for boards, and I would encourage young people, because that is not young people only, the ladies that and gentlemen that aspire to be, don't look out for boards that pay. Because many times the boards that pay expect you to come with a lot of knowledge and expertise. So if you've not had it anywhere, you'll actually get lost a bit. If you've had it, it's nothing new. All you need is a different field. You say, now it's a bank. What do I need a bank? Now it's insurance. What do I need? This is aviation. But the concepts are the same of governance. What differs is the different area of professionalism, the different area of focus for that specific organization. Yeah.
So glad you mentioned that, not just your first, but the first 3 of them are not paid. And it highlights service over self, right? In the truest fashion that's possible. And board is a position of responsibility. Board is a position that many that shapes the it shapes the values, it informs the operations, it informs the activities, it informs the direction that an organization starts to take. And I think in a lot of ways, committing ourselves to something without something in return, in cash or in kind, builds a different kind of moral courage within us.
Even the satisfaction. Right? You see, when you do something and you see a change, I used to look at how many children have we managed to get off the street. On health, how many people have we managed to save on HIV/AIDS? And then when you go to another health, you're saying how many children have we saved of malaria? So the satisfaction and gratification is more into the results. So you tend to look at the results and the impact on society and for you as an individual. There's nothing as good as satisfaction. You could actually serve on a board that pays you thousands of dollars, but you're not happy. You're not satisfied. You're not being recognized, and maybe your impact is not being felt. So it depends on what everybody wants to be. If it's only focused on money, I can tell you, you'll serve on the first board and you may not get on other boards. So you must be able to balance that.
That's there.
Yeah, that is big.
That note, staying on boards. Yes. How did you prepare, for more complex and paying boards, right? More demanding boards, How did you?
I think what I can say, Ruchira, is that after serving on the boards, the NGO boards, I think then I got onto my first board, which is a bank, which is a Women in Business, DFCU. And later I joined the Uganda Civil Aviation Authority as a board member, which is Total and Aviation. I then go to FINCA as a board member for the first 1 year, and the second year I'm appointed as board chairperson. And then recently the UAP Old Mutual, and then 3 ways. But what I can say is, what do you need to stay on boards? The first thing is boards are by referral. It's very rare. Lately, we've seen boards being advertised in the newspapers looking for board members. But in essence, in practical, they never do interviews. Every board is looking for somebody who is good in something. So when there are boards that are going on, the question will be, do you have anybody serving in a board who is good? What can we take them on? So how you behave, how you add value, the character, the branding, the position that you have in one board will determine the next board that you go to. The other one is being prepared. For me, one of the things that I do, whether it means sitting the whole night to read board papers, is I'm always prepared for the board. I know I've given that example before, that you can enter into a boardroom and everybody's opening the files, and you can tell when somebody's opening an envelope meaning they are reading from there. So being prepared and organized for a boardroom is another one. The third one is that I will not read board papers and stop at that for the organization. With all this email, Google, and all information everywhere, I go an extra mile to read over and above what that institution is. And I can give you aviation. As appointed on the board of Uganda Civil Aviation Authority, I wasn't a pilot. I hadn't done any course in aviation. I only got into that board because of the governance that I had. So if you're to balance the board, they needed the technical, they needed the political, but they also needed somebody, one or two, who were very grounded. But when I got into that board, what did I do? I went into reading aviation. So if I went into the boardroom, the examples I would give would be global. If somebody is saying we're having challenges of traffic at the airport, I would give an example of 2 other airports that have had the same challenges and the solutions they have found. So you must be a solution maker. The people you already have in the board, the management, are knowledgeable. They are technical, they can lead people, but for you to differentiate yourself, you need to have that extra knowledge over and above just the institution that you have. That's what gives you the edge. The other example I can give is if it's a bank, don't only restrict your knowledge on that bank. Get into that boardroom and know what the banking sector in your country is all about. Where have they gone? What challenges they've had? So when you're knowledgeable, it gives you that image. And when people are given opportunity to identify who, it's very easy to be identified. The other one is relationships. I can tell you one of the things that I've done over the years is that I have tried to build relationships, whether in the boardrooms with other board members, with other colleagues, with other institutions. Now, when somebody says, we are looking for a board member, because there's a relationship, somebody will say, yeah, I think we need to try this lady. She's good, she's done well. Being able to share my knowledge free. Sometimes there are those who have called me and said, we have a challenge in our boardroom. What do you think? How do you think we can resolve it? And I come in handy, not looking to be paid, not looking for anything, but having the mind to say, I can help another organization to also go through this challenge. So those relationships, stakeholder engagements, mixing with different boards gave me that opportunity, and it's one which can give you an opportunity to join a board and stay on the board. So you end up actually being invited on 2 boards, and you're able to say, you know, I now have 3 boards, because that's one of the standard. Don't take on every single board, because if you take on so many boards and you have a job and you have a family, you'll never be able to deliver. So in my decision, when I get board opportunities, I'm like, yes, I want 1 private. Yes, I have 1 NGO. I think I'll stop on 3. Because you can actually take on too many and fail to deliver. And that journey that you've always had will again go down. So you have to be deliberate in every single step you take. And then knowledgeable, as I said, you must read a lot. Right now, I read a lot. For me, that's one of the things. You cannot say reading stops. You must read, you must ask for information from others, because it strengthens you, it makes you knowledgeable, and you're able to actually make decisions.
So Olive, on the matter of staying on boards, and you spoke of relationships, right? To know people from other boards you may not be a part of, right? Board is a place of power play.
Yeah, exactly.
So have you had experiences where you have felt hostility, or there has been strong arming and all of those fun things with power that people do, right? And you still managed to stay on. Could you share something?
Yes. From that journey of the different boards that I've served, definitely, there will be 1 or 2 of those. But the question would be, how did you manage to stay?
How did you manage
Now,
to stay?
normally to stay, because it can be very challenging, and I'll give you one example. Normally, it starts from hostility of management. You see, sometimes you find this board and management was comfortable with the status quo. They were comfortable with doing things the way they were doing them. And maybe you've had audit reports. Maybe you even have qualified audit reports, year in, year out. Maybe you've had issues of fraud. Maybe you have had issues of several issues. And you see, at that time, management, depending on their level of knowledge and awareness that actually boards help them, they will look at you and feel like, I think you want to catch them, or you want to get them out of their job, or you want to move into this direction. But that's one of the biggest things. And what they will do, they will deliberately try to decampaign you to be not to have your term renewed. That normally happens in many boards. Government boards are one of those. Very good at that. That somebody can just decide to say, okay, I think what we need, who should we engage to make sure that this gentleman or this lady doesn't come back on the board. But for me, the example I can give is that I've had that before, but my approach with management should never be forceful. You can still put your message right. You can put your communication in a very simple, calm manner and still achieve what you want. So when that comes in, the other bit that you must know, you must follow procedure. Boards are compliance. You must follow procedure. You must be able to see far and see where the gap can be and where you can be held responsible. Because whoever is trying to get you out of that board or will not be comfortable with your decision will be looking at you where you have failed on following procedure, guidelines, policies, and other bit. So you have to be alert and say, okay, if we are going to make a decision, that decision must be watertight. It must be following procedure 100%, even if it means delaying another year. So every step has to be very well structured. The other one, you must be consistent. Because you see, when you make a decision, and because you've got resistance, and you know it is the right decision, the chances that you're going to change the decision. And after the third time, you'll again change the decision. Now, those changes in decision, the inconsistencies in your decision making are one of the triggers that actually will prove that you are not maybe the right person to be on the other board. The other one, which I know, is that you will find a board where board members will actually demand for maybe what is not supposed to be to the board. Maybe they will demand for a car, maybe they will demand for an office, because different people understand the role of boards differently. Now, if you're into that situation, and one day you fall out with management because you're trying to get them into the right procedure, that will be the starting point of bringing you down off the board. Because you have empowered them, and there's proof and evidence that you've actually gone against the corporate governance principles, which are very clear in King's report. You've said you failed on your accountability, which is your responsibility. You have failed on all of them. The financial management, you failed on all of them. Transparency, you have failed. So always know that every single board you go to, something wrong can happen. But you can only get out of that if you have those following procedure, processes, structured, the law, if it's about law, legal regimes, you know. And I've been on one board of that nature, and I stayed on the board. Because when these issues went on and reached the top governance and whatever, they said, no, let's check these board members. The report came out 100% exonerating the board. So you end up having me back into the boardroom. So I think that happens, but it's better to always anticipate it. Not all things that look good, not all gold will always be gold. So as you start that journey, always foresee what can go wrong. Yeah. And always place your mind to follow certain steps in your decision making. The other one which I can share is that quickly, many times we get onto boards and we want the good boards. We want the good boards. If not paying, you don't want a board that has had challenges. You're saying now this board has had challenges. It has had the issues that were in the newspapers. I don't want my name to go down with that board. But your responsibility in governance is to help boards to improve, to help organizations to improve. So sometimes you must be able to take risk and say, you know what, I'll take the risk. This organization has had challenges, but let me go in there and add my value and see whether I can become part and parcel of those people that help this organization to move the right direction. So I want to appeal and to encourage to many that don't go only for boards that are running well, that are making money, that don't have losses, that don't have wrong audit reports, that are not in the newspapers for the wrong reason of failing to pay. Have that mindset where you can have a mix of supporting boards that actually have challenges and they're not liked because the media is awash with them. Go in and add value on that.
Yeah.
So.
A solid piece of advice, Olive, solid.
Thank you, Ruchira.
And we are almost at the top of the hour with our conversation, and as always, it was extremely lively, very enriching, and full of passion.
Thank you, Ruchira, and thank you for the moderation. I think it makes it much easier when we're just discussing and chatting about these things.
Yeah. And now it is time. Thank you very much. And now it's time to call on our viewers who have joined us today, and they probably have many more questions to ask. So I should not hog all of you to myself. I will give you back to your audience. All right. So with that, we will let people come in for question and answers and sharing their thoughts.
Okay. I think that is super. We are waiting to answer the questions. Yeah.